So I was just going to kick off by just talking a little bit about that job search routine, particularly in Ireland, like, and depending on what kind of fields you're looking at, but it can be quite a small market in that lots of people know each other. And, you know, if you're like getting to the interview stage is probably the hardest part of it. So candidates that are just blanket bombing their CV all over the market, like people will recognize that, they'll speak about it. If they're seeing you applying for the same job over and over again, or, you know, sorry, like sending your details in for maybe 5 or 6 jobs within their company, like that can just look really bad, and it's not focused, you know. Like regardless of how much experience you have in your career, like an employer wants to feel kind of special, and that, you know, you're really interested in their job and their organization, and it's not just kind of like, I'll just send this one CV out to everyone and see where it lands kind of thing. So it is about kind of putting that structure in place and keeping yourself focused. So what I would always recommend to people is to spend specific time every week on your job search. Have a routine, as in checking whatever websites are suitable for the areas that you're hoping to, for the fields that you're hoping to move your career towards, as well as like chatting to maybe a couple of specialist recruiters in those fields who can be really helpful in terms of directing you into different areas to look at. And also just on follow-up, like I think follow-up's kind of one of the areas that people can kind of fall down on, that they're sending out numerous applications and just kind of never seeing any feedback back from them. You know, sometimes it is just that little push that can make you even stand out from the crowd. So you're kind of just checking in on kind of where things are at. So really kind of managing exactly where your CV's gone to, who you've heard back from, who you haven't, you know, have you sent them a follow-up, and just kind of really managing it like that. I think for people that spend every night trawling through Irish Jobs and Grad Ireland, you know, it can be definitely soul destroying. And that's where people just start going, ah, feck it, you know, I'll just send out a load of CVs, and you know, they're kind of burning themselves at maybe potential employers that they really want to work with. So it's kind of, you know, having that structure where you're dedicating time to following a routine, but also like not getting just sucked into it every single night and really losing the will to live, because it, you know, it can get like that. And depending on how the market is, whether there's lots of jobs or at the moment where the jobs are kind of shorter, you know, you can't spend a lot of time looking at repeated things, things that you've applied to, or, you know, some of the websites, they don't allow jobs to be deleted for a certain amount of time. So sometimes you could be looking at stuff that's already been fulfilled, which can be difficult. So that's probably the probably number one thing, is probably just to have your routine, just to keep yourself focused, and to not kind of just give up then for 2 weeks because, you know, your head's so wrecked with it, and maybe miss opportunities. So like, you know, maybe a couple of hours a week, sort of, you know, varying it from mornings and afternoons, maybe doing about 3 to 4 hours a week is probably what I'd look at. I know there's a couple of speakers going to talk about LinkedIn, but it is just absolutely crucial. You know, you want to keep your LinkedIn as fresh as possible, absolutely having it focused on the areas that you want to look at, making sure you're linked in with the correct groups within the industries that you're interested in. You know, I'm sure you guys have a really strong alumni, so it's linking in with, you know, as much of that as you can, and just really trying to make it as easy for people to find out information on you as possible. You know, obviously having your picture up there and, you know, just trying to use it to the best of your advantage. Sometimes I think when you know people and you can kind of see who they're connected to, it can be a really good way to kind of look at different avenues that maybe you haven't thought of before in terms of your job search.
Can I stop you for a second there? How would you say, what do you think about, say, when you look into a candidate and on LinkedIn, and that candidate is essentially linked with all HR recruiters? These are the main connections that you have in common. You can see. How would you perceive that kind of connections or that kind of network?
I just perceive it like, I don't know, like I think that, you know, if they were all HR people, I think this person is really trying to find a job and is chatting to all the right people. You know, I'd see that as somebody that's really being proactive. You know, like it's great linking in with people within the business, but, you know, decision makers, you know, HR is crucial. Like they're the people that will give you the direct access to what kind of jobs are there, and you know what you can go forward to, and they're the ones as well who are going to be more than likely promoting the jobs. So being linked in with them means that you're seeing their updates, you're seeing exactly what's coming up in their organizations. So I would probably perceive that as pretty positive. You know, if I was an employer seeing that, I kind of think, God, like they're obviously linked in with loads of my competitors. I better kind of get moving on this person.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that have
Yeah.
been asked. Do you want do you want me to ask the questions while you're talking, or you want to finish your talk and then we get to them?
I don't mind. If you have any, I can field them
Well,
as we go.
I can see a couple of questions which are related to the current situation and the fact that one is essentially how do we overcome the doubts of an employer now that the exam integrity, assessment integrity might be perceived as not as strong as should have been, maybe just because of all these things that's going on. And then the second one is, in the current crisis, it's very tough to figure out which jobs are active, which employers are seeking applicants. So
Sure.
what's your advice on this?
So just with the exam one, you know, it's a really difficult call. Like we've never been through this situation before. All I can say is like all employers that I'm talking to at the moment, day in, day out, they're just making allowances for absolutely everything. Like everybody knows somebody that's in this situation where they're doing their exams, you know, and the whole exam thing is across the board. It's not like only certain students are affected. Like it's going to be an even playing field in that sense. And I think, you know, like time will kind of tell, but I think like everybody's making allowances for the situation that's going on at the moment. So hopefully, you know, if you're keeping up with um you know, making your applications and, you know, having those good conversations, that hopefully that will kind of overcome it. In terms of kind of what's active with the roles, again, you know, so with the active roles, it is difficult to know. Like, you know, I've been working on a senior HR position for the past month that just went on hold this morning after meeting people for interviews. You know, they're just like, we just don't know what's going to happen, and we're just going to put things on hold until September. You know, if you had asked me yesterday, I would have said that was still going ahead, and you know, it was an active job. So things are changing all the time. I think if you're, you know, just taking the assumption that if it's there, it's live, but you're, you know, you're making sure to have your follow up. Like I wouldn't just try like assume that something's not there, or that something's not going to be active just because it's been there for a little while. Like make that inquiry, put it on your list, follow it up, and just and check it off. You know, if it's been there for a while, like if it was posted 2 months ago and you kind of feel it's not really going to be there, try and maybe drop them a little LinkedIn message just saying, you know, I saw this online. Is there a point in sending in my application? Great. So I just was kind of going to go on and just talk about kind of networking and events. And I know there's probably none of that happening right now, but like there's a couple of online things that are going on. And if you know, if you're in LinkedIn, you know, you can see different talks and different events that are coming on, and it's really important to kind of stay linked in with those. Like I know we've done a couple with Aon, with SAP, and LinkedIn obviously have been doing loads themselves, and it's just great to kind of stay in the loop with what's going on. But I suppose in more normal circumstances, it is about trying to get out there and network with as many people as you can. It can be kind of tricky, I think, when you're in the situation to try and, like, if you're not used to networking and if you don't feel comfortable doing it, it can be hard. But I think after years of hating it, I sort of started to learn that it's like, look, if you can kind of have a bit of a chat with somebody, maybe not even get into exactly, you know, I'm a recruiter, I'm looking for jobs, or I'm a graduate, you know, I'm looking for employment. But if you can make that contact and link in with them and maybe send them a message at a later time, like that's success, you know, like that's that's networking, you know, and you chalk that down to a win. So it's kind of managing your expectations in that sense as well, you know, trying to just chat to as many people as you can, and then just following up with them at a later time. So it's kind of going to go on to just like, you know, everybody kind of has in their mind, like I know there's a lot of kind of business grads on the call, but it's kind of just having to think about where your career, like I think everybody has a job in mind that they're hoping for. I think with the job search, it's just trying to broaden that out as much as you can and look at kind of what your skill sets are and how they can maybe cross over into different fields, different careers within organizations that maybe you haven't even thought of before. It's trying to read as many job specs as you can and just kind of, you know, look at the type of person that they're looking for, and then you can kind of go backwards and see if it's the type of role that you would like enjoy. It can be difficult, I think, before you've worked in a company to even understand the type of jobs that are out there. I don't think some of them, you know, people would set out from a graduate perspective as thinking their long-term career is going to be in compliance or something like that. But then at the same time, you know, it's a fab career and it really suits some people's personalities. So it's just kind of keeping it as broad as possible and having those conversations where you can with those, like at those networking events, like asking people, what's your job, how did you get there, tell me about your career you know, your career path and how it kind of shaped to get you to where you are today. So it's just kind of keeping it as broad as possible, because I think I'd say at least, like, you know, 7 times out of 10 people end up in jobs that they probably had never even thought of when they started their education. So it's kind of keeping those lines open. One thing to consider, and it's probably going to be more and more over the next couple of months, is looking at contract and temporary work. So, you know, a lot of, like, we're seeing, you know, the perm market has really tightened up at the moment. So just companies are unsure kind of what their next steps are. They're all kind of saying that they hope that in the next kind of 4 weeks that they'll see that opening back up again. And that would be brilliant, but who knows, it probably could be a little bit longer. But regardless, and even in normal circumstances, contract and temp work is such a great way to get experience. You know, you can pop in and out of a, you know, company for a couple of months and get to see the organization, exactly what they do, who their competitors are, what they do, where they are in the market, get a good sense for that. But also kind of see what type of jobs are within the company. Maybe there's an area that you thought was brilliant and you might upskill into that area, take another course that maybe would never have been on your radar before. And it can also be a great, like, it's obviously a great way to network. So meet people, like link in with absolutely every single person that you come across always. Because, you know, especially if you've had some temporary work with them, like I myself, like, worked in a temporary job and went in, like, absolutely just put myself forward for everything and worked really hard, got kept on for a couple of months in an even better job, and it just opens doors everywhere, you know. We were recently working with a guy who was a marketing graduate and finding it really difficult to find marketing roles, which can definitely is very typical for that industry. A lot of kind of free internships and all that kind of stuff. So we'd been working on something at night and came to us and we got him a job. I think it was kind of temping, doing just like an admin, you know, 3 months of admin or something for a project for a company. And they absolutely loved him and kept him on and put him in their marketing team. And, you know, like, that opportunity would never have come about, only that they had met that person doing an administration job. They'd done a really good job and it had opened up other opportunities for the person. And that can be, you know, like immediate or in the future. You know, you link in with all those people that you're working with and seeing their updates of whether they're looking for a job. You know, maybe they've moved on to another company and they're looking to hire somebody, and, you know, it'll stand to you for the rest of your career. And then one of the things is just to kind of be open to not just working with some of the bigger organizations, the big brands that are out there. A lot of people focus on those. They're highly competitive roles. They can be really long and tricky interview processes. And there's absolutely super roles, but it's just not to discount working for smaller companies as well. Like, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But I think sometimes the smaller companies can be a bit dismissed, and they're ones where you're more likely to have a more direct line to senior management, that you your job is probably a little bit more able to pivot and diversify into different areas, because in smaller organizations, you know, they wouldn't have their teams built out as much as they do with with the bigger firms. So it's just kind of keeping an open mind to that kind of thing. Again, you know, when you chat to people even that are working in the big brands, like a lot of them will have come from that small to medium enterprise type background. um they'll, like, you know, the big brands, they always ask, like, give me examples of your leadership skills. And you know, that's always when you've worked in a smaller company and you've been able to take ownership of a project, or you know, really be able to contribute to some piece of the work that is maybe bigger than what maybe you're qualified to do. But when you're in a smaller organization, you do get to maybe get stuck into different projects that might be a little bit more difficult when you're in a bigger brand. So if, you know, that kind of tech firm is your goal, you know, if you don't get into that role in the first occasion, you know, think about looking at kind of more of a medium-sized brand with, you know, with the thought process of developing all of your skill sets, getting involved in as much as you can, and it will just put you in a much better footing then going forward. And then just finally, just in terms of job searching, you know, I think it's trying to just, I know you've already had a bit of a chat about CVs, but it's just kind of making that CV stand out as much as possible. Like it's similarly with your LinkedIn profile. Um, I think with the CV, you know, it's constantly just like, I wouldn't use the same CV over and over again. It's tailoring it for every single application that you make. I think, you know, if nobody has that much experience and they're trying to pick out, like, you know, 5 people out of a bunch of 100, like, who do they pick? You know, it's the person that's kind of tailored it, that's shown an interest, that can, you know, like, link all of their previous jobs or previous internships or work experience or volunteer work or whatever, can make connections to the job that they're applying for and give a good reason as to why they've applied. You know, some, like, one of the hardest questions people get asked at an interview is, you know, why have you applied for this job? And if it's just kind of like, oh, it's a great company, like one of the tech firms that we do a lot of work with, you know, they would discount people at any stage if they thought they only wanted to work for the company and they didn't really want that specific job, you know, that they just were like, I'll get in and I'll just do anything to get in, and then once I'm in, I'll get my dream job. Like, they'll be discounted straight away. You know, they want to hire people into their teams that will, you know, the culture of their team and the spirit of their teams are so important that if they bring somebody in that's kind of not into that specific role but just wants to get into the company, you know, it's just like, can be like a rotten apple in a team, and can bring everybody down. So they're really conscious about, why do you want this exact job, you know, and show me on your CV and show me in your interview, you know, why this is exactly what you want to do for the next year to 2 years.